The sky above Zeta Prime was a constant bruise of ash and fire, clouds boiling with static from orbital bombardments. Once, the colony had been a jewel, verdant valleys, twin moons. Now it was dust and skeleton steel. Sergeant Eli Voss tightened the strap on his faded exo-armor. The left shoulder plate was dented, the HUD flickered when it rained, and the cooling system hadn't worked in 3 years. It didn't matter. None of it did. Because this wasn't a mission, it was a grave assignment. He stood in the shuttle bay of Rust Bucket, a half-dead transport ship that reeked of coolant and regret. Around him, the other members of Unit 17B gathered, 7 in total, none combat fit by standard metrics. A walking mockery of a military unit. "Who's in charge here?" a gravelly voice barked. Eli turned to face the source. A man in crutches, Private Mags. His cybernetic leg was twitching from faulty wiring. "I am," Eli said, his voice even. Mags stared at him. "Thought they were sending a real sergeant." "They didn't," Eli replied, then moved on. To his right, a pale man with sunken eyes cleaned a long-range rifle with trembling fingers. "Name?" Eli asked. "Wells. Can't see too well at range, but up close? I'm decent." "You're a sniper." "Was. Now I just make things flinch." Behind him, a woman adjusted her medical pack. Her uniform was stained, not with blood, but dried mud and children's drawings. She caught Eli staring. "Don't expect miracles. I'm a field medic, not a resurrectionist." "Name?" "Dr. Kara Mendez." I volunteered. Probably should have been institutionalized instead. One by one, the stories unspooled. Cowards. Traitors. Burnouts. People tossed from humanity's core military force for insubordination, breakdowns, or refusing to pull a trigger. All put on a ship and sent to die on the last outpost. And yet, as the ship shuddered with the friction of atmospheric descent, Eli felt a strange calm settle over him. He'd always done his best work when no one expected anything. Landing in 10, came the pilot's voice over the comms. "Good news is, they're not firing at us yet." "Bad news?" "The reason is probably because they think we're already dead." Eli looked out the small viewport. Zeta Prime was worse than the reports. Smoke spewed from fractured reactors. Buildings stood like cracked teeth. Council walkers, four-legged, spider-like war machines, moved among the wreckage, methodically scanning for survivors and broadcasting surrender instructions in 50 languages. No resistance. No troops. Except them. Rust Bucket slammed into a half-collapsed hangar with a groan. Metal screamed. Gravity equalized with a thud. "Move!" Eli shouted. They spilled out, limping, coughing, armed with scavenged weapons and duct-taped gear. Not a single standard-issue rifle among them. Eli counted 6 functioning firearms, 2 energy blades, a flamethrower with half a tank, and 1 hacking rig that had once been part of a kitchen appliance. Mags looked up at the hangar's rusted ceiling. "This place looks like it's been hit 3 times. "It has," Wells muttered. "We're the 4th. Eli scanned the area. "We hold this point. Turn it into a base. No contact with Earth Command. No reinforcements. We're on our own." Kira looked up sharply. "You mean we're meant to die?" "No," Eli said, "we're meant to delay." "That's different." They worked quickly. Barricades from supply crates. Traps made of wire, nails, and broken floor panels. Hacked comms to catch enemy frequencies. Mags set up sensor beacons that mostly just beeped when birds flew by. Wells climbed to a broken turret tower, breathing hard, and began taking readings with a scope that clicked like an old film projector. "What do you see?" Eli asked, joining him. 2 squads. Maybe 20 units total. Standard Council infantry. Not expecting a fight. Eli frowned. "They'll come in casual." "That's good." Wells coughed. "Good for what?" For teaching them a new kind of war. By nightfall, the air stank of ozone. Distant explosions echoed like thunder. Eli sat by a broken console, adjusting a field map with Kira beside him. "You ever wonder," she asked, "why they sent us? Not the elites. Not the Met Corps. Us." Eli looked at her. "Because they wanted plausible deniability. If we die, no one questions why Earth didn't commit fully. If we win." "We won't," she said flatly. "If we win," he repeated, "it makes a point no elite force ever could." Footsteps echoed across the broken hangar floor. Mags returned from patrol, dragging a body, Council recon scout. Young. Probably his first war. "He was alone," Mags said. "Didn't even fire." Eli knelt beside the corpse. The soldier's armor was polished, symbols clean. He'd never expected resistance here. No one had. He looked up. "Strip him. Find out what they know. What they fear." A sharp electronic whine split the night. The beacon flared red. Wells called out from above. "Multiple targets incoming. They're here." Everyone scrambled. Guns loaded. Drones activated. Blades primed. In the center of the ruined hangar, Eli stood tall, cracked armor and all, facing the shattered gates as the first Council shadows moved into view. "Remember," he said, voice cutting through the noise, "we're not the strong. We're not the elite. But we are still human. And they've never fought anyone like us before." Outside, the first shot rang out. The war for Zeta Prime had begun. Eli Voss ducked behind a crumbling support pillar as plasma scorched the air above. The heat singed his cheek, but he didn't flinch. They were still probing, testing for resistance. He checked his jury-rigged wrist display. 3 red pings moving through the lower level. Light scouts. Faster than infantry, dumber than drones. They moved in predictable patterns. "Wells," Eli whispered into the comm, "targets near the old rail line." From the shattered tower, Wells replied, "Already got him." A second later, 3 sharp cracks echoed. The scouts dropped, no flashy explosions, just bodies thudding into dust. Precision work. From a half-blind sniper. Eli smirked. "Still got it, old man." "Team status?" he asked. Kira's voice came through next. "Patching mags. Shrapnel to the thigh." "He's still arguing." "He does that. Don't we all?" she muttered. Eli slid from cover and jogged to their fallback point, a dark control room lined with cracked monitors and corroded systems. The others were gathered inside, Mags on a makeshift cot, teeth gritted. Kira crouched beside him with surgical focus, torching a needle before stitching. Across the room, Bren, the ex-hacker turned saboteur, was gutting an alien drone with a screwdriver and an old lunch tray. "I can give us surveillance," she said, not looking up. "Low-grade, short-range. Basically a flying doorbell. But with spikes." Eli nodded. "Better than nothing. It'll be ugly." "So are we." Mags grunted. "Speak for yourself." Eli sat across from him. "You're walking in an hour." "That's optimistic." "No, that's an order." Outside, they'd triggered 3 kills with improvised mines made from reactor cores and broken plating. The 4th was taken down when Wells used a ricochet shot off a satellite dish. They weren't fighting like soldiers. They were playing dirty. And it was working. Council forces had expected a sweep, an easy occupation of a dead zone. Now their forward teams were gone. Fear was creeping in. "I tapped into their chatter," Bren said, flicking open her makeshift display. "They think there's a company of humans down here. Maybe even commandos." Kira looked up. "We're 7. "Yeah," Bren smirked, "but we scream like 50. Eli leaned forward. "What else?" "They're bringing in a containment unit. Not infantry, specialty squad. Anti-insurgent protocol. No mercy." Timeline? 6 hours. Maybe less. Eli stood. Then we bleed them before they arrive. 2 hours later, the hangar was a ghost trap. Walls painted with false blood. Lures hung from tripwires. Speakers wired to transmit cries, screams, laughter, looped human voices recorded from Kira's old field logs. Wells moved through the upper scaffolds, barely visible. Bren placed an active beacon in plain sight, then rigged a backup behind it, a fuel rod taped to a proximity mine. Anyone rushing in would grab the bait and lose a squad. Kira set her med station beneath collapsed rubble, easy to defend, easy to evacuate. Mags, wounded but upright, posted at the southern flank with a repurposed welding torch and a sack of old anti-tank nails. New plan, Eli said over the group comm, hit and vanish. Leave signs of more. Noise is power. They nodded, no argument. The next wave came at dusk. 6 council soldiers advanced, their armor glinting under searchlights. They moved with textbook formation, tight spacing, synchronized motion. Then the lights exploded in their faces. Eli triggered a sound bomb. Screeching static blasted the area, disorienting their sensors. The soldiers flailed, stumbling straight into a minefield marked with human bones, staged earlier by Kira and Mags. 2 died instantly. The others scattered. Wells dropped a third with a knee shot. Bren's rigged beacon exploded, sending a wall of fire through the entryway. The last soldier ran into a side tunnel, directly into Eli's blade. No words. Just one clean thrust beneath the helmet. Then silence. Eli dragged the body into the shadows. Later, around a dim fire, the squad rested. 5 confirmed kills, Bren said. No wounded on our end. They're not sending rookies anymore, Mags added. Next wave's going to hurt. They think we're something we're not, Kira said. Eli turned to her. Then we let them keep thinking that. She stared at him. Is this the plan? Hide, stab, hide again? Until when? Until it matters. A pause. Then Wells, quietly, they used to call me a ghost. Now I feel like one. No, Eli said. Ghosts don't bleed. Later that night, Eli found himself in the ruined chapel nearby. Half the roof gone, pews splintered, altar charred. He stood alone, staring up through the open ceiling. He wasn't praying. He never had. He was remembering. 5 years ago, on a relief mission, he'd disobeyed orders to protect civilians. His unit was wiped out. He survived. They called it cowardice. He called it conscience. That moment had brought him here, to the edge of the galaxy, commanding people who had also been discarded. His comm crackled. Eli, Kira said. Wells spotted movement. He turned. Location? Old refinery. Big squad. Not scouts. He exhaled. Understood. On my way. As he stepped out, thunder rolled in the distance. Not weather, artillery. Zeta Prime wasn't done yet. And neither were they. Smoke drifted through the tunnels like ghost breath. The air was thick with scorched metal and dust. Eli led the squad deeper into the ruins beneath the refinery, weapon raised, boots crunching over rubble and ash. They hadn't spoken much since the ambush. Half the hangar was gone, consumed by fire after a drone strike hit their rigged explosives. They'd expected a scouting party. Instead, a full strike force had come through, with exact coordinates. Too exact. Someone had sold them out. Eli paused at a corner and gestured. Mags moved to cover. Bren dropped to one knee, pulling up a scrambled comm feed. Kira checked Wells's arm, which had been grazed by shrapnel. The silence stretched. Bren looked up. There's still a signal broadcasting. Not Council. Not us either. Scramble code? Eli asked. Human format. Military grade. Piggybacked on our last outgoing ping. Kira's brow furrowed. So someone sent our position, from inside. Eli nodded once, quietly. He already knew. Only one person had access to the relay hardware before Bren took over. Only one person had acted strange when they landed. Too calm. Too sure they wouldn't make it back. Lieutenant Halden. They found him 2 levels down, in the collapsed reactor core housing. The walls were lined with fusion conduits, cracked open like rib cages. Halden sat on a crate, helmet off, staring into the flickering blue of a damaged coolant stream. He didn't look surprised when Eli approached. "I suppose you figured it out," Halden said, voice low, eyes empty. Eli leveled his sidearm but didn't fire. "Why?" Halden didn't answer immediately. He just stared ahead, like watching ghosts dance through the mist. "They told us Earth would never win," he finally muttered. "They said we were dust. And you know what? I believed them." Eli stepped forward, slow and deliberate. "So you volunteered for this mission just to fold?" "No. I volunteered, so I could make sure someone didn't start another war that kills billions. You didn't stop war. You just handed us over." Halden's expression twisted. "You don't get it. The Council isn't fighting to win. They're fighting to erase. You think this squad scares them? You think you scare them? This is a performance, Eli. They're letting us bleed a little, so they feel justified when they wipe us off the map." Eli's grip tightened. "You gave them our location." "I delayed it," Halden snapped. "I gave them time frames, not real-time data. Enough for them to believe I'm cooperating. Enough to keep you alive, until now." Mags stepped into the light behind Eli, torch crackling in his hand. "You want a medal for halfway betrayal?" Halden looked down. "I don't want anything anymore." Eli lowered his weapon. "He's not wrong about the Council. But he made his choice. We'll deal with it later. Right now, we need that signal shut down." Bren moved past them and plugged a portable jack into the control panel. Within seconds, her screen flashed red. "This isn't just a signal," she muttered. "It's a beacon. Prepping coordinates for orbital lock. They're marking us for a tactical purge." Eli's jaw clenched. "Time?" Bren didn't look up. 10 minutes. Maybe less. He turned to Halden. "You started this. You fix it." "I can't." "Then try." Halden stood, slowly, hesitantly. He reached into the access port, typing codes only he could know. The lights flickered. Then the console exploded. Sparks ripped through the air. Halden was thrown back, skidding across the floor. Smoke rose from the panel, completely fused. Bren coughed. "Fail-safe protocol." It triggered when he tried to disable it. "It's automated now." Eli cursed under his breath. "Options?" "Only one," Bren said. "Get to the relay tower. Manually sever the uplink." "That's in the blast radius," Kira said. "I know." Eli turned to the group. "Prep for evac. Minimal gear." "I'll go to the tower." "No," Kira said instantly. "That's suicide. You're the medic. We need you alive. We all know it's a one-way trip." Mags stepped forward. "Then I'm going with you. You're limping. So? You're bleeding. We'll match." Eli looked at them both, then back to Halden, who was coughing blood. "You don't have to do this," Halden whispered. "I do," Eli replied. "Because you didn't." The relay tower stood half-collapsed on a ridge overlooking the ruins. Static lightning danced across the sky as orbital systems spun up. The glow from above was growing, Council warships were charging. Eli and Mags reached the tower's core node, panting. Both wounded. No backup. No time. "This is the worst plan we've ever had," Mags muttered, sliding a power cell into the detonator housing. "Good thing it's also the only one," Eli said. They worked fast. Wires. Charges. Manual bypass. The tower's interface flickered to life. Bren's voice crackled in Eli's comm. I see your signal. Uplink still hot. If you're going to do it now. Mags dropped the final charge. Done. Eli pressed the switch. The uplink died. Silence. Then, a second signal flared, closer. Different. What is that? Eli asked. Bren's voice came back, tight. Another beacon. They're not purging Zeta Prime, they're purging just you. Focused strike. Eli looked to the sky. The beam came down like a divine spear. The explosion lit up the valley. Back in the tunnels, the squad ducked as the shockwave rolled through. Dust choked the air. The relay tower was gone. Kira stared at the tremor lines on the monitor. Any signal? Bren shook her head. Nothing. And then, status, came a voice through static. It was Eli. Alive. Barely. Coughing, scorched, but alive. They missed, he said. Tell the council, their aim's as bad as their leadership. The squad laughed for the first time in days. Even Halden managed a smile. They came at dawn. No more scouts. No more testing. Just the council's final answer, a purge battalion armed with heavy mechs, atmosphere searers, and flame crawlers. Above them, a low hum filled the air. Orbital platforms charged for another pass, but this time there'd be no warning. Eli stood in the center of the broken plaza, shoulders squared, armor blackened, left arm wrapped in a torn medcloth. Every breath hurt. His ribs felt cracked, maybe worse. But he stood. One last time. Behind him, what remained of Unit 17B moved with grim purpose. Kira checked their dwindling supply of painkillers and gauze. Bren wired the last proximity mines, hands shaking but precise. Mags, burnt, limping, dragged a portable cannon into place like it weighed nothing. And Halden, bruised and silent, loaded cartridges into a sidearm he hadn't touched since the betrayal. No speeches. No bravado. They all knew what this was. Status? Eli asked over the squad channel. 2 minutes, Bren replied. Maybe less. They'll sweep us clean, Kira said flatly. Then we don't give them clean, Eli said. We give them hell. From the tower wreckage he'd barely escaped, Eli had recovered an unshielded core, unstable, pulsing with residual charge. Enough to fry systems within a kilometer. He slotted it into the plaza's broken fusion grid. If they could stall long enough to draw on the mechs, that core would overload and light the sky. He keyed his comms. Bren, trigger the signal jammer. Done. The skies above shimmered. The hum of the satellites cut off like a switch had flipped. The council couldn't track them anymore. But that meant no evac, no backup. Just them. As always. The first enemy wave crept through the ruins, their silhouettes tall, metallic, methodical. The lead mech fired a concussive blast, enough to send debris flying past Eli's cover. Fire, Eli ordered. Wells's bullet cracked the silence. It hit a mech's optic node, just enough to blind it. It turned, fired wildly, and struck one of its own. Mags hurled a flash charge. It detonated in midair, revealing proximity lines. 2 crawlers rolled over them, shattered in a blink. Still, they advanced. Kira dragged a wounded Bren behind a wall. You're done, she said, jamming a stabilizer into her thigh. Bren's voice was strained. No. Not yet. Just get me close to the core. What for? I can overclock it. Make the blast count. No promises you survive. Bren grinned through the pain. Didn't come here for promises. The squad fell back in layers, each position bought with traps, grit, and sheer spite. Halden held the east flank alone, calmly dispatching soldiers with headshots from cover. It wasn't redemption. He didn't ask for it. But he showed up. That was enough. Eli ducked under a collapsing awning as another mech fired. The heat scorched his hair. Time, he barked. Bren's voice crackled back. Almost ready. But it's unstable. It might go early. Then hurry. Another blast tore the street open. Kira and Mags pulled back, dragging the injured. Wells stayed high, covering the retreat, until his perch exploded. For a long second, nothing. Then his voice came through, weak but alive. I'm out. Rifles toast. Spotting only. That's all I need, Eli said, gritting his teeth. They regrouped at the plaza's edge, now surrounded. Smoke curled into the morning sky. The council squad closed in, weapons raised. Their commander, a towering Osiri warlord, stepped forward, helmet gleaming. You resist. Pointless. Eli raised his chin. You think strength is what wins wars? It always has. Eli glanced at Bren. She nodded. Then try surviving this, he muttered. Bren hit the trigger. The overloaded fusion core shrieked. Light flooded the plaza. Static cracked the air. Every mech seized. Council weapons fizzled. Circuits blew. The warlord screamed as his armor shorted, collapsing like a puppet with its strings cut. The explosion wasn't fire, it was pressure, like a breath held too long finally exhaled. Dust and silence. Eli woke moments later, coughing. The plaza was leveled. Metal and flesh scattered. He rolled onto his side, pain lighting up every nerve. Around him, others stirred. Mags, bleeding but alive. Kira leaning on rubble, dazed. Bren, barely conscious, her hand still on the detonator. Even Halden was upright, half buried but breathing. They hadn't won. But they'd survived. And that was enough. A week later, council ships withdrew from Zeta Prime. They cited unfavorable planetary conditions in their retreat report. No mention of a half-dead squad repelling an elite strike force. Earth Command responded with confusion, then silence, then medals. None of them cared. On a hill overlooking the ruins, Eli stood alone, watching a sunrise that finally broke through the smoke. Footsteps behind him. Kira joined him, arms crossed. We're being recalled. Transport en route. Figures. You still limping? Still breathing. She smiled faintly. They called us weak. We were. He looked down at his scarred hands. But weakness isn't what broke them, he said. It's what made us human. She didn't reply. She didn't need to. Final line. If this is what they do with their weakest, what happens when they send their best?